You know, sometimes life will have you questioning if you're even built for what you're facing. The weight feels heavy, the feelings feel real, and those negative thoughts, they whisper like they own the room. But I came here to remind you of something your spirit already knows you were created for this. Before the battle showed up, God had already put the victory inside you. Before the fear, the sadness, the frustration ever tried to creep in, Heaven had already stamped you with resilience. You are not here by coincidence. You are here by design. Negative feelings may visit, but they don't get to take up residence. They may knock, but you hold the keys. And if you'll shift your perspective, if you'll let your faith rise above the noise, you'll discover that the very thing that was meant to break you is about to build you. Today, we're not just talking about feelings. We're talking about identity. We're talking about walking in the truth that your Creator made you more powerful than anything you're up against. So, let's deal with these negative feelings once and for all. Because your calling is too big, your purpose too important, and your God too faithful for you to live in the shadows of what you were born to overcome. You were not made by random chance. Before you ever took your first breath, before your name was ever spoken on this earth, there was a blueprint in heaven with your life written on it. Your existence was not an accident, it was an intentional act of creation. Every detail about you, your voice, your personality, your strengths, even the challenges you would face, was woven together with a purpose so specific that nothing about you is wasted. The way your mind works, the passions that stir your heart, the way your spirit responds to certain moments, all of it is evidence that there is divine intent behind your design. When life gets hard, when negativity clouds your vision, it becomes so easy to forget this truth. You start believing the whispers that say you're not enough, that maybe you made a wrong turn, that maybe you're not as capable as you thought. But the truth is, the weight of the obstacles you face is proof of the strength you carry. A manufacturer doesn't test a product with less than what it's built to handle. In the same way, you wouldn't be in the middle of this situation if you weren't equipped to walk through it. Negative feelings are not proof that you're failing. They are proof that you're human. But even more than that, they are invitations to rise higher. They are the signal flares in your emotional landscape saying, something here is challenging you to remember your power. The problem is, most of us have been trained to see those signals as stop signs. We feel fear and think, I can't do this. We feel doubt and think, this must mean I'm going the wrong way. But what if those emotions weren't there to stop you? What if they were there to sharpen you? You were designed with the capacity to carry purpose even under pressure. That's why you have survived things you thought would take you out. That's why, even when you were at your lowest, some small voice inside of you kept saying, don't give up. That voice wasn't just motivation. It was a reminder from the one who made you that your design is stronger than your discomfort. Think about it. When a master architect designs a building, they take into account the storms it might face. They calculate the weight the foundation can carry, the winds the structure can withstand. God did the same with you. He factored in your storms before you even stepped into them. He considered the heartbreaks, the losses, the disappointments, and still decided, this one will stand. That's why you cannot define yourself by the moments when your feelings get heavy. Your identity is not tied to your emotional weather. It's anchored to the unshakable truth that you were created for a specific purpose and equipped for every season that comes with it. You might be in a season right now where you feel unqualified, unworthy, or unseen. But feelings don't get the final say. Purpose does. And purpose was written into you before you could ever mess it up. The fact that you feel the tension between where you are and where you believe you should be is actually evidence that you're in motion. That discomfort is a sign of growth, of stretching into a version of yourself that already exists in the mind of God, but is waiting to be revealed in your reality. Negative feelings can trick you into thinking you're going backward, but often they're just the growing pains of stepping into more. When you plant a seed in the soil, it doesn't look like much is happening. In fact, if you were to judge the seed by sight alone, it would look buried, pressed down, covered in darkness, but underneath the soil, there's transformation. The pressure of the dirt, the darkness of the soil, the hidden process, it's all part of the seed's journey to becoming what it was created to be. You are that seed, and just because you feel buried doesn't mean you're dead. It might mean you're being positioned to break through. The thing about divine design is that it anticipates opposition. God knew you would encounter situations that would test your faith, challenge your peace, and shake your confidence. That's why resilience is built into your spiritual DNA. That's why, even in your most difficult moments, there's a part of you that keeps searching for the light. You may cry, you may doubt, you may even feel like quitting, but something in you refuses to settle for less than the promise spoken over your life. That something is purpose, and purpose is stubborn. When you realize you were created for a reason, you stop taking your existence lightly. You start seeing your life as a trust, something valuable that was placed in your hands for a season, not to waste, but to multiply. And when you see your life that way, negative feelings lose some of their power. They may still show up, but they don't get to define you because you're anchored in something deeper than emotion. You're anchored in truth. Sometimes the gap between knowing your purpose and feeling like you're living it can feel unbearable. You may know in your heart that you were made for more, but your current reality seems to contradict that. This is where faith comes in, not as a cliché, but as a living, breathing force inside of you. Faith allows you to hold on to the truth of your design even when your feelings are screaming otherwise. Faith says, I know what it looks like, but I also know what was promised. And that promise is woven into who you are. Your design carries divine intent, and that intent is not fragile. It doesn't dissolve when you make a mistake. It doesn't vanish when you feel weak. It doesn't retreat when fear knocks at your door. The reason you can survive storms is because you are built with storms in mind. And every time you come through one, you're not just surviving. You're proving that what's inside you is greater than what's around you. You may have been told that you're too emotional, too sensitive, too weak to handle what's in front of you. But I'm here to tell you that your emotions are not a weakness. They are proof that you are alive, proof that you care, proof that you are invested in your journey. And while emotions can sometimes cloud your judgment, they can also guide you back to truth if you listen with the right perspective. The key is remembering that they are a part of your design, but they are not the whole story. When you truly embrace the fact that your life has intentionality, you start to see challenges differently. You realize that nothing is wasted, not the heartbreak, not the detours, not even the seasons where you felt stuck. All of it becomes raw material in the hands of the Creator, shaping you into the person you were always meant to be. And while negative feelings may still visit, they no longer have the authority to convince you that you're lost. Instead, they become a reminder to return to your foundation, to remember the truth of your origin, and to keep moving toward the fullness of what you were designed to carry. Feelings are powerful. They have the ability to color the way you see the world, influence the choices you make, and even shape the way you see yourself. But feelings were never meant to be the foundation of your identity. You can feel fear without being a fearful person. You can feel sad without being a broken person. You can feel doubt without being a faithless person. The problem comes when we allow what we feel in a moment to redefine who we believe we are. That's where the real battle begins, not in the event that triggered the feeling, but in the agreement we make between the feeling and our identity. Life will always present moments that stir emotions we don't enjoy. Someone's words can cut deep, an opportunity you hoped for can slip away, or you can wake up one day and feel the weight of uncertainty pressing down on your chest. And in those moments, your feelings can start whispering lies. You're not good enough. You'll never get it right. You're stuck here forever. If you're not careful, those whispers start sounding like truth, but feelings are not facts. They are responses. They are signals from your internal world telling you how you are perceiving a situation, not necessarily how the situation actually is. When you learn to separate your identity from your emotions, you reclaim control over your life. You start to understand that you are not defined by the waves that crash against you, but by the anchor that holds you steady beneath the surface. That anchor is who you truly are. Your character, your values, your calling, your God-given purpose. The waves can be loud, but they cannot change the anchor unless you choose to cut it loose. This separation is not about ignoring your feelings or pretending they don't exist. Denial is not strength. True strength is the ability to acknowledge what you feel without giving it the power to dictate your worth or your future. It's being able to say, yes, I feel afraid right now, but I am still courageous. Yes, I feel insecure right now, but I am still capable. Yes, I feel overwhelmed right now, but I am still chosen and equipped. The feeling is real, but it's temporary. Who you are is eternal. Too often, people live as if their feelings are the ultimate authority. If they feel sad, they assume life is hopeless. If they feel rejected, they believe they have no value. If they feel anxious, they assume danger is certain. But this is living as a prisoner to emotions, and prisoners cannot move freely toward their destiny. The moment you believe your emotions are your identity, you hand over the keys of your life to something that changes with the wind. Separating your identity from your emotions requires awareness. You have to be able to pause in the moment and recognize, this is how I feel, but this is not who I am. That pause creates space. Space to breathe, space to choose, space to remember. Without that space, feelings and identity become tangled like vines, and soon you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. Think about a cloudy day. Just because the sky is covered doesn't mean the sun has stopped shining. The sun is still there, steady, powerful, unchanged. It's just that in this moment the clouds are blocking your view. Feelings can be like those clouds. They can obscure your vision of who you really are, making it seem like your light has gone out. But your identity, like the sun, is still there, waiting for the clouds to pass. The challenge is that negative feelings often come with physical sensations that make them feel permanent. Anxiety can make your chest tight, sadness can make your body heavy, and anger can make your heart race. Those sensations trick your mind into believing, this is me now, this is how I will always feel. But you've been here before, you've felt pain before and made it through. You've had bad days before and seen better ones come. If you take an honest look back at your life, you'll see proof that feelings change, seasons shift, and you always make it to the other side. One of the most powerful things you can do is stop saying I am when describing a temporary feeling. Instead of saying I am depressed, say I feel depressed right now. Instead of saying I am a failure, say I feel like I failed in this moment. That shift in language might seem small, but it's a declaration to your mind and spirit that the emotion is an experience, not an identity. It is something passing through you, not something that defines you. This isn't just positive thinking, it's spiritual alignment. When God formed you, He did not base your identity on your emotional patterns. He based it on His intention for your life, on the gifts and strengths He placed inside you. Feelings might point out your current emotional weather, but they don't rewrite the blueprint of who you are. That's why someone can go through a season of deep sadness and still be a person of joy. It's why someone can experience moments of fear and still live a courageous life. Identity is deeper than emotion. Negative feelings often show up the loudest when you're stepping into new territory. The enemy knows that if he can get you to equate discomfort with disqualification, you'll stop before you see what you're capable of. You'll tell yourself, if I feel this anxious, maybe I'm not ready. If I feel this overwhelmed, maybe I'm not cut out for this. But feeling uncomfortable is often proof that you are growing. The soil has to press against the seed for it to break open and grow roots. Likewise, your feelings may be pressing against you right now, but that doesn't mean you're breaking down. It means you're breaking open. Learning to observe your feelings instead of absorbing them changes everything. You can say, I see this feeling, I hear what it's trying to tell me, but I choose to act from my values, not my emotions. This doesn't make the feeling disappear instantly, but it keeps it from becoming your driver. You take the steering wheel back and your feelings move to the passenger seat where they belong, and when you separate yourself from your emotions, you can handle life with more clarity. You stop over-identifying with every passing thought. You stop building yourself worth on unstable ground. Instead, you root yourself in the unchanging truth of who you are and allow feelings to simply be part of the journey. There's freedom in knowing that you can feel fear and still walk in faith. Feel sadness and still choose joy. Feel doubt and still take the next step. Your life moves in the direction of the story you believe about yourself. Every thought you think is like a brushstroke on the canvas of your reality, and over time, those strokes begin to create a picture that you start living inside of. If that picture is filled with defeat, limitation, and hopelessness, then your feelings will reflect that image and your actions will begin to align with it. But if you shift the narrative, if you change the way you think about who you are, what you can do, and what is possible for your life, you will begin to change the way you feel and eventually the way you live. Negative feelings often grow out of narratives that have been repeated in your mind for so long they feel like truth. Maybe someone told you when you were young that you would never be enough. Maybe life taught you that good things don't last. Maybe you failed in the past and now your mind plays that scene over and over like a broken record. These mental loops become the background music of your life and you start to move in rhythm with them without even realizing it. The problem isn't just the feeling, it's the story feeding it. If you want to overcome negative emotions, you have to rewrite the script running in your mind. Shifting the narrative begins with becoming aware of what you're telling yourself. Most of the time, the thoughts that shape us are so automatic we don't even notice them. They show up quietly in the middle of a conversation, after a small mistake, or when we're trying something new. Thoughts like, "This always happens to me," "I'm not good at this," or "Why even try?" These are not just casual phrases. They are the roots of emotions like discouragement, fear, and shame. When you catch yourself repeating these narratives, you have to challenge them. Ask, is this really true? Or is this just a story I've been telling myself because it's familiar? The truth is, your mind cannot hold two conflicting stories with equal power at the same time. Whichever one you feed will grow stronger. If you keep watering the old negative narrative, it will continue to dominate your emotional state. But if you start speaking a new story, even before you fully believe it, you begin to plant seeds for a different emotional landscape. That's why you have to speak truth to yourself even when you don't feel it yet. Feelings will catch up to the thoughts you consistently entertain. It's important to understand that this shift doesn't mean ignoring reality. If you've gone through loss, you acknowledge the pain. If you've made mistakes, you accept the lessons. But shifting the narrative means you don't allow those moments to become the headline of your life. You refuse to let "I failed once" turn into "I am a failure." You refuse to let "I'm struggling now" turn into "I'll always struggle." You start telling the story from a place of faith and possibility rather than fear and limitation. Your brain is wired to look for evidence that supports the story it's already telling. If you believe you're unlucky, you will notice every unlucky moment and ignore every blessing. If you believe people can't be trusted, you'll notice every disappointment and overlook every kindness. This is why changing the narrative is so powerful. When you change what you believe, your brain starts looking for proof of that new belief. Suddenly, you notice opportunities you would have missed before. You see progress where before you only saw problems. You begin to feel hope in situations that once felt hopeless, not because the situation instantly changed, but because the story you told yourself about it did. Shifting your narrative requires intentional practice. It's not enough to think one positive thought and expect your emotions to transform forever. You have to keep reminding yourself of the truth, especially when the old story tries to creep back in. That might mean starting your day with declarations like "I am capable," "I am loved," "I am chosen," or "I am growing stronger every day." It might mean catching yourself in the middle of a negative thought and saying, "No, that's not my story anymore." Over time, these small moments add up, and the emotional weight you've been carrying begins to lift. One of the most effective ways to shift your story is to frame challenges as chapters, not conclusions. A difficult season is not the end of your book. It's a page in the middle, and just like in any good story, tension is what makes the victory worth reading about. When you see yourself as a character still in motion, still developing, still being shaped, you stop labeling yourself based on the chapter you're in right now. The character you are becoming is far greater than the situation you are facing. Your faith plays a crucial role in this transformation. Faith allows you to speak of things that are not yet visible as though they already exist. It gives you permission to see beyond the immediate moment and believe that something better is unfolding. When you shift your narrative through the lens of faith, you're not just practicing positive thinking. You're aligning your mind with the promises of God. You start saying, "I may be in the valley, but I'm on my way to the mountain. I may feel weak right now, but His strength is made perfect in my weakness. I may not see the whole path, but I know my steps are ordered." Negative feelings lose their grip when they no longer have a story to attach themselves to. Fear can't control you if the story you're telling yourself is, "I've faced hard things before and come through stronger." Shame can't keep you down if the story is, "I am redeemed, and nothing from my past can cancel my future." Hopelessness can't trap you if your story says, "This is temporary, and something better is ahead." The emotions may still knock on your door, but when they show up to find a new story in place, they realize they no longer belong there. It's also worth remembering that shifting your narrative doesn't always mean the feelings go away immediately. Sometimes the emotions linger while your mind is learning the new language of hope and truth. But even in that gap, you're building something powerful. You're training your inner world to respond differently. And as you do, you'll find that the emotions start to match the story you're telling instead of the other way around. The thoughts you entertain are seeds, and the harvest they produce will match their kind. If you sow thoughts of defeat, you will reap feelings of defeat. If you sow thoughts of possibility, you will reap feelings of strength and hope. Every time you choose to tell yourself a story that reflects your God, give an identity instead of your temporary situation, you are planting seeds for a future where your emotions align with truth instead of fear. Faith is not just something you turn to when you're hurting, afraid, or unsure. Faith is not meant to be a crutch that you lean on only when you're too weak to walk. Faith is fuel. It is the power source that ignites action, determination, and perseverance even in the middle of uncertainty. When you understand that, you stop treating faith as an emergency exit and start using it as the engine that drives you forward. Many people treat faith like a comfort blanket. They only pull it out when they're overwhelmed, hoping it will calm the storm inside. And while faith does bring peace, it was never meant to be passive. True faith moves you. It pushes you to take steps you can't fully see yet, to make decisions that don't make sense to everyone else, to keep moving forward even when every natural sign says to stop. Faith is what allows you to build when there's no visible foundation, to speak life when you see nothing but loss, and to walk into rooms where you feel unqualified because you know you were sent there for a reason. Negative feelings often thrive in the absence of movement. When you sit in fear, doubt, or sadness without taking any action, those emotions multiply. They feed on stillness. Faith, however, disrupts that stillness. It tells you to take a step even if it's just one. And that step breaks the cycle because movement gives your mind something new to focus on and reminds your heart that you are not powerless. Faith doesn't wait for the feelings to change before it acts. It acts, and the feelings begin to shift as a result. When you make faith your fuel, you start operating from a different perspective. You stop asking, "What if I fail?" and start asking, "What if this works?" You stop looking at what's missing and start focusing on what's possible. Faith shifts the lens through which you see everything. The problem might not disappear, but your vision changes. You begin to see opportunities in what used to look like obstacles. You start noticing resources in places you thought were empty. You begin to feel a quiet strength inside you that doesn't come from your own ability, but from knowing you are connected to a source that cannot run dry. Faith also strengthens your ability to reject lies. Negative feelings often carry messages with them. Whispers that tell you you're not enough, that you'll never get past this, that things will never change. Without faith, those whispers can feel convincing. But when your faith is strong, you have a filter. You can hear those lies and immediately measure them against the truth you believe. If the thought doesn't line up with the promises of God, you dismiss it. It has no authority in your mind. Faith gives you the discernment to separate truth from deception, even when your emotions are loud. One of the most misunderstood aspects of faith is that it's not about ignoring reality. It's about refusing to let reality be the final word. You can acknowledge the doctor's report, the bank account balance, the broken relationship, or the rejection letter, and still believe that something greater is at work. Faith allows you to live in the tension between what is and what will be. It holds you steady when the evidence says impossible, but your spirit says watch what God can do. And faith isn't just about big, dramatic miracles. Sometimes faith is what gets you out of bed when you feel like giving up. Sometimes faith is making that phone call you've been dreading. Sometimes faith is showing up to work, to the meeting, to the conversation, even though you're tired, because you believe there's something on the other side worth pressing toward. These small acts of faith, repeated over and over, build resilience in you. They train you to keep moving no matter how you feel. Negative feelings often create a fog around your vision. They make the path ahead seem unclear or impossible to navigate. Faith is like a light cutting through that fog. It may not illuminate the entire road, but it gives you enough clarity to take the next step, and that's all you really need, just enough light for now. You don't have to see the whole picture to keep moving. You just have to trust that as you go, more will be revealed. Making faith your fuel also means you don't wait for perfect conditions to start. If you only act when you feel confident, when everything is lined up, when the path is fully clear, you will wait forever. Faith says, go now. Faith says, use what you have in your hand today. Faith says, take the first step and the next step will appear. And when you move like that, you discover that momentum itself becomes a source of courage. Every step you take in faith makes the next one a little easier. It's important to understand that feelings will often lag behind faith. You might take a step and still feel afraid. You might choose to believe and still feel doubt trying to creep in. That doesn't mean your faith isn't working. It means your emotions are adjusting to the new reality you're creating. Faith isn't about waiting until the feelings match. It's about moving forward regardless. Over time, as your faith builds, you'll find that your emotions begin to follow, aligning themselves with the hope and expectation you've been carrying. Faith as fuel also impacts the way you speak. When you're moving in faith, your language changes. You stop speaking defeat over your life. You stop repeating the same negative narratives. You start speaking as if what you've prayed for is already on its way. Your words carry weight, and faith makes sure that weight builds rather than destroys. Speaking with faith isn't about ignoring difficulties. It's about choosing to give your energy to the vision instead of the problem. Another thing faith does is shift your focus from self-reliance to divine reliance. When you try to carry everything on your own strength, negative feelings can overwhelm you quickly. But when you recognize that you're partnered with a power far greater than yourself, the pressure lifts. You still work. You still take action, but you know the outcome doesn't rest entirely on your shoulders. That awareness alone can calm fear, ease anxiety, and replace hopelessness with expectation. Faith is active. It listens for instructions and moves accordingly. It looks for where God is leading and steps in that direction, even if the steps don't make sense at the moment. It refuses to be paralyzed by the size of the challenge because it knows the size of the one who walks alongside you. Faith transforms negative feelings by giving them a new context. What once felt like an impossible wall now feels like a test you're about to pass. What once felt like a crushing weight now feels like resistance training, building strength for what's ahead. When faith becomes your fuel, you stop letting your feelings dictate whether you keep going. You can feel afraid and still step forward. You can feel tired and still keep building. You can feel uncertain and still move with confidence because your trust is not in the stability of the path, but in the one who called you to walk it. And in that space, negative feelings lose their power to hold you back because they no longer determine your direction. Every challenge you face has the potential to either drain you or develop you. The difference lies in how you choose to interpret and respond to it. Negative feelings are often the first sign that you're encountering resistance in your circumstances, resistance in your mind, resistance in your spirit. And while resistance can feel uncomfortable, it is also a sign of movement. You don't feel resistance standing still, you only feel it when you're pushing against something. That means the very fact that you are feeling this pressure could be proof that you are headed somewhere worth going. Resistance is not your enemy. It's the raw material from which strength is built. In the physical world, your muscles only grow when they push against weight. Without resistance, there is no progress, no strengthening, no transformation. The same principle applies to your spirit, your character, and your emotional resilience. Every negative feeling you experience can become a tool in the process of refinement, shaping you into someone more grounded, more disciplined, and more powerful than you were before. But here's where most people miss it. They interpret resistance as a sign that something is wrong. They feel fear and assume they're on the wrong path. They feel doubt and assume they've made a mistake. They feel exhausted and assume it means they should quit. In reality, these feelings may simply be the friction that comes with growth. Fire refines gold by burning away impurities. The process isn't gentle and it isn't comfortable, but the result is something pure, valuable, and unshakable. When you're going through something hard, it's easy to see only the discomfort. You may feel like the weight is too heavy, the fight too long, the process too exhausting, but in those very moments, you're building a capacity you didn't have before. You're developing endurance. You're learning how to operate under pressure without losing your peace. You're discovering that you can survive more than you thought, and not just survive, but adapt, grow, and emerge stronger. Negative feelings can become teachers if you let them. Fear can teach you where your trust still needs to deepen. Anger can reveal where your boundaries need to be stronger. Sadness can show you where your heart still needs healing. Doubt can uncover where your faith needs reinforcement. Every one of these emotions, when approached with awareness, can become a tool for self, discovery, and spiritual growth. They point to areas of your life where something needs attention, not to destroy you, but to prepare you for the next level of your calling. Refinement is never random. If you look back at your life, you can see moments when what felt like breaking was actually building. That heartbreak you thought would shatter you made you more compassionate and wise. That failure you thought ended your chances actually taught you the discipline you now rely on. That season of loneliness pushed you into deeper relationship with yourself and with God. None of it was wasted. The resistance you faced then became part of the foundation you're standing on now. One of the most important shifts you can make is learning to lean into the discomfort instead of running from it. When you avoid resistance, you avoid growth. When you numb your feelings, you numb the lessons they carry. Leaning in doesn't mean you enjoy the pain or pretend it's easy. It means you acknowledge it, you face it, and you ask, what is this here to teach me? How is this shaping me for where I'm going? This mindset turns every negative feeling into an opportunity for refinement. The truth is, you are not just being prepared for the battles you're facing right now. You are being prepared for battles you don't even know are coming. Every time you overcome resistance, you build a kind of spiritual muscle memory. You train yourself to respond with strength instead of fear, with patience instead of panic, with faith instead of doubt. The next time you encounter a similar challenge, you won't crumble under it. You'll recognize it for what it is, and you'll know you have what it takes to endure. Refinement through resistance also strips away what doesn't serve you. Pressure has a way of revealing what's real. When you're tested, false beliefs start to break apart, unhealthy habits rise to the surface, and relationships that can't withstand the pressure are exposed. It may feel like loss, but it's actually clarity. You begin to see what belongs in your life and what doesn't, what needs to grow and what needs to go. This pruning process is part of what makes you more focused, more intentional, and more aligned with your purpose. And while refinement is deeply personal, it's also deeply spiritual. Resistance is one of God's tools for shaping your character to match your calling. If your calling requires patience, He'll allow situations that test your patience. If your calling requires boldness, He'll put you in places that challenge your courage. If your calling requires humility, He'll allow moments that remind you to depend on Him and not just your own strength. It's not punishment, it's preparation. When you begin to see resistance this way, your relationship with negative feelings changes. Instead of seeing them as threats, you start seeing them as signals. You can say, I'm feeling this pressure because I'm growing. I'm feeling this discomfort because I'm stepping into something bigger. I'm feeling this fear because I'm moving into territory I've never been in before. The feeling doesn't become pleasant, but it becomes purposeful. It's also important to remember that refinement is a process, not a moment. Just like gold doesn't become pure after one pass through the fire, you don't become unshakable after one challenge. You will encounter resistance more than once, and each time it will strip away another layer of what's holding you back. Over time, you will notice that situations that once overwhelmed you now feel manageable. The weight that used to crush you now feels like something you can carry with steady hands. That's the fruit of refinement. Sometimes the greatest strength you gain through resistance is not just the ability to endure hard times, but the wisdom to navigate them without losing your peace or joy. Refinement teaches you that peace is not the absence of struggle. It's the presence of stability in the middle of it. It teaches you that joy is not tied to everything going your way. It's tied to knowing that you are growing, evolving, and becoming the person you were always meant to be. Every time you choose to keep going in the face of negative feelings, you are participating in your own refinement. Every time you decide to see purpose in the pressure, you are transforming the resistance into strength. And every time you choose faith over fear, you are shaping yourself into someone who can not only carry the weight of your current challenges, but also the weight of your future blessings.